Dun, dun, dun! Hello, beautiful people. It's me, Robyn Carpenter Briscoe, your favorite spiritual life coach. And I am here in this undisclosed location, in this beautiful undisclosed location, to welcome you to yet another episode of Illimitable Living Sessions. And today we have my magnificent friend, KRISTIN Walter, who has her own show here on YouTube that you can find called The Real Classroom. We will talk about that a little bit later, so we can get the whole scoop on that. In the meantime, I want you to know that this is one of my favorite people on the planet. That is really what's important to know. We go back quite some time, long before I met my husband, who I love very much. So KRISTIN is one of my inspirations. She is one of my favorite people to bounce ideas off of. You always need those kinds of people in your life. She is a coach. She is an entrepreneur. She is a philanthropist. She is kind and generous of spirit. She is filled with love, and I am grateful to have her in my life. Welcome.
Oh, thank you. What a wonderful introduction. I mean, everything you just said, I feel much the same about you too. And I'm just so honored and blessed and grateful to be here with you and with you as well. And just so excited to be a part of this. And I love your channel. I love everything that you're doing. And like you said, you've been a part of my life for so long. And when I have deep spiritual issues, it happens a lot, I call you.
You did call me.
Yeah.
You're like, so I have a question.
Yeah, this one's a curveball. And she's like, I got it. No problem. Let's figure this out, you know?
Well, yeah.
Yeah, so I'm really excited. Thank you for having me today.
This is a good. This is part 2 of fear, doubt, or worry. And if you haven't seen part 1, that was last week, you can go back and check it out. Today is part 2, which can stand alone by itself because it's a whole new conversation. And I wanted to have this conversation. I want to keep this conversation going because it's important to understand that regardless of how spiritually empowered and evolved you get, there will always be moments when things will pop up. Yes?
That's right. Yes. It's not like you can just take your car to the mechanic one time and it's fixed.
Right.
Sometimes the car breaks down.
Again.
Or has a little tiny thing.
Or this thing over here suddenly made this thing happen that never had that before. Right? You've never been down that road before. So, of course, you didn't know about that pothole. So now, oh, there it is. I've popped a tire. The same tire I just got fixed. However, it's not the same situation.
Right.
I love that car analogy.
I think also, you know how like you'll take your car to the shop for one tiny maybe mechanical or electrical thing, and they'll fix that. And then a couple of days or weeks later, they say, oh, well, we fixed that. So it made this sensor in the car go off. So really the deeper problem is here, you know? And so it's like people talk about, you know, the layers of the onion. Well, that's a little bit hard to understand. But for me, it's the car mechanics, you know?
It's true. That just happened.
Yeah.
It was like, well, yeah, we can fix this, but that's happening because of this something else over here. And you're like, oh, great. This is some like other thing. and yet
you just keep doing it.
You keep rolling with it. Right. Mm-hmm. And you have to know who you are, right? Mm-hmm. In order to keep rolling with it.
Right.
And not get taken off course simply because something needs to be addressed.
The machine is still intact.
Yes.
It's just little things inside.
And you just gotta, see to it.
Yeah.
I like it. So fear, if you recall, or for the first time, fear all of these are emotions. These are feelings that we have: fear, doubt, and worry. And fear is the perception of danger, and it's real or imagined, right? So you don't actually have to be in danger. You can just perceive danger.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a lot of talk around that, how if you've experienced any sort of trauma, it still lives in your body, so that your body will always perceive fear even when there isn't any. And so you have to retrain yourself to not feel it anymore.
Right.
And trauma can be huge, or trauma can be small, like it
Right.
could be, oh, I don't want to go back down that road because such and such and such happened that one time, like it doesn't have to be some really terrible, tragic kind of experience, but anything that doesn't feel good is some sort of trauma.
Right.
So you have to retrain yourself to go, you're fine. It's okay.
Yes.
You can get through this. You got you, right?
Yes.
You've got you. So that's always means you always have the support you need, because you're never going anywhere.
Right. Well, I love this, what you're talking about with the fear getting stuck in your body, because interestingly enough, what I've discovered is that, humans, we're one of the only, I think we are the only species that we know of so far that will store negative or even positive emotions in our body.
Mm-hmm.
So I love this book. Of course, I didn't bring it out today, but I have it inside in the library. Louise Hay.
Yes.
Heal your mind, heal your body.
Yes.
And so for me, like if I have recently my hip was sort of locked up, and I walk 3 to 5 miles a day hiking, and I was thinking, well, what is the hip telling me?
Mm-hmm.
What am I what emotions am I working through? Because I'd done my yoga, I'd done my roller, I'd gone to the chiropractor, gone to massage, all the things,
right.
And the thing is still stuck. So I'm
right.
like, well, maybe this is a mental, emotional thing.
Right.
I don't think that all things in your body are that.
No.
I do believe in, things
right.
happening that you can't always help. But so I went to that book, and we'll put a link below to all the books that I talk about, because I like to read a ton of books, and I just talk in books, because if you don't believe me, just go to this book. There's other people,
She's my friend, right? We had a whole conversation about books, right? Yeah. So
So Louise Hay in the book says to me, and she says, well, if you've got a stuck hip, then that means then you're not wanting to move forward with joy in your life. You're stuck somewhere. So literally, is you thinking about walking, you're like, oh, my hip is stuck. Well, I can't move forward.
Yes.
So then she has that little, she has what she thinks that the cause is, the emotional or the thought cause. And then she gives you a positive affirmation.
Yes.
And so when you're talking about fear being something that we create in our mind, it's not just creating those negative emotions being stuck in our body, it's creating a vibration.
Right.
And when I think about that with relations to stones, I also think about animals, because I'm out in the woods all the time, and I have a dog, and I think that I can communicate with animals on a vibrational level.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think the thing that most people understand is if you're afraid,
right,
and you walk up to a horse, the horse can sense that fear, or a dog can sense that fear. And so, but then it becomes this cycle, right? Because this is my first dog.
Right.
And anytime in the past, if a dog was to come towards me, a big, large dog running towards me, my immediate reaction is like, I'm afraid. And then the dog feels my fear, and then I feel its fear. And then it just becomes this
everybody's
fear
freaked out.
Yeah. So you have to make that quick calibration, to come back to center and say, what's really happening here.
Right.
And that's the same way that I get after the pandemic, not being around a lot of people, getting into a social situation again.
Right.
Because even though I'm a Gemini and I love to talk and I love to party, the answer to everything is a party. Not being around people, during lockdown, the first time I was coming into new situations in a new town and a new business and stuff, I was fearful.
Right.
And so that's when I reached out to you and I said, what can we do around this?
Yes.
And it just so happened that one of your stones for 2021 was the Larimer. And so you can see we did the work around the Larimer, and I wear this whenever I'm, wanting that extra grounding energy.
Yes.
And my affirmation is I'm received and heard and loved.
Yes.
And that works. That puts me right where I need to be with that fear of, bumping up against other energies.
See, I told you this stuff works.
It does work.
It's not just me saying these things. And last week we talked about Larimer, and what I love is that this is literally from her kit. Like she got the stones kit and then had it turned. You get the stone, and then she had it turned into a necklace.
Well, and I love it that it's only in the Dominican Republic.
Yes.
And that's where I have one of my organizations, Community Connection International, that we teach children to read.
Oh, right on.
In Spanish, you know.
Right.
We partner with some of the Major League Baseball players who have farms down there. And
right.
They let us use their ball fields for our school in the summer.
I love it.
So when you said that it was from the Dominican Republic, I'm like, yep, this is it.
It's like definitely all me.
Yeah.
And that's what happens, right? This is what happens, particularly with stones, right? You're just like, they're all on it. I don't have any of my rings on. I just realized that. Because they're just yours, and you just and you zip and you zing in there, and then you just keep duking. And that's why you got to work with them, right? That's why you got to like not just have them,
right?
Use them,
right?
And have the affirmation and say it when you're putting it on, or when you're picking it up, or when you're engaging with it, and remembering what it's about. So it anchors that, because when you have a fear response, right, the first thing you can do is go right back to the thing. Go right back to your affirmation. Go right back to that stone. Remember what it's about. Remind yourself of what you really want to be about, because we're creating our own life every day. This day has never existed before. This day in our life has never existed before. So every day we create it. So that's why not create a good one, you know?
Yeah, I love the concept. I've always loved your concepts around the stonework, because I could go to Macy's or Tiffany and spend some money on some things.
Yes,
you know,
right.
I could walk in and ask the lady, show me what's blue and beautiful.
Right.
But if it doesn't mean anything to me and I'm wearing it, it's not really grounding me or protecting me or whatever when I'm out in the world.
Right.
So to me, that is, important. And I also think the concept of this, the stonework, is that it's something outside of me that is not a person. Right. So like, I don't have a person that I can always hold their hand if I'm feeling afraid.
Exactly.
Or it's not alcohol or drugs or a bad vice. It's relatively, it's great. It's like therapy.
Yes.
And I'm not hurting the stone.
Right.
So like if I'm afraid and I'm with my dog, and maybe I jerk her leash too hard because I'm afraid, like that's hurting her.
Right.
But if I'm grounding myself in the stone, it's almost like it came here to help me with that. It did.
Yes.
It's withstood so much more pressure than that in the past. Yes. It's what made it what it
is. That's how it got there in the first place.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's the earth. It can take it, right? Like it's like, look, man, I got you.
Yeah.
We got this. We're all good.
Mm-hmm.
And your point about like going to Tiffany's and just, buying a pretty blue stone.
Right.
The way that it then becomes what it can be is by, you bought that pretty blue stone. That pretty blue stone is an aquamarine. You look up what aquamarine's metaphysical properties are.
You can do your own work.
You do the thing.
Yes.
So then it still becomes the other thing.
Oh yeah.
And it in of itself, that could, even if you don't know what the stone is for, right?
Right.
However, you've always wanted to buy something from Tiffany.
I'm not saying I don't like Tiffany.
No. I'm just saying
you
always
want to buy me some Tiffany.
We'll put a link. Yeah, right. But here's my deal, though. This is how it still becomes that intentional piece of jewelry. You've walked into Tiffany's. You've always wanted to buy something from Tiffany's. You never had the money to buy something from Tiffany's.
And now all of a sudden you can gift yourself, and it means.
And now it becomes a thing. So even when you don't know what any of those things are, every time you look at that piece of jewelry, you see it. It puts a smile on your face to remind you that you did this.
Right.
You wear this. You wear it with pride every time you wear it. You know you look good in it. It's always your thing. It's still your thing. It still becomes intentional jewelry. It still becomes your story of the life that you are creating. It always goes back to the mindset that you then can create by using the stone, right? By taking what you, or the empowerment that you were looking to create in your life, and having it remind you at any given time what it is that you were creating.
Yeah. Yeah.
So what's good about that is a really nice segue into the next word, which is doubt.
Doubt. Yeah.
Because that becomes lack of conviction, right?
Right.
So that is our lack of enoughness. I'm not smart enough. I'm not, whatever enough, thin enough, young enough, old enough, whatever your enoughness is, you then have doubt about your ability to be able to create the life that you said that you wanted.
Right.
To do the thing that you said that this is what is mine to do. Like, oh, maybe I don't have fill in the blank.
Yeah.
What do you do with that?
So when I was watching last week's episode, which, like she said, if you haven't watched it, you need, go after you're done with this one, go back and watch it. Because when you talked about doubt, something that really stuck out to me was it could be your own self-doubt or the doubt that other people have planted for you.
Yes.
And so on my channel, I talk a lot about how in the corporate world, there are bullies who know how to plant these seeds of doubt in our mind.
Yes.
And they're essentially gaslighting us. So every morning I have a ritual that I think really does ground me. And I'm just going to share it with you. Yes. So, every morning and I wake up and I do my stretches and my yoga and I have my coffee. This is my morning routine right here. You guys are going to laugh, but this is it. So
come on.
So I have my journal, which I love these journals from Peter Popper Press. They are just beautiful, out of White Plains, New York.
Ooh.
I'm going to drop a link below to the Amazon there, but they're just, it's just a lined page, and I just, write down my dreams or my thoughts, my gratitudes,
yes.
In the morning.
Yes.
And then I have Dr. Judith Orloff.
Okay.
Thriving as an Empath. So this is a daily. So this one has a thought of the day for every day.
I love it.
And then it has you set your intention. Okay, so I do that.
I like
it.
I
set my intention. And then I also have, is it okay to?
Yeah, of course.
The Science of Mind magazine, Centers for Spiritual Living.
So
that also has the dailies.
We love this. The woman that I'm studying, my practitioner work through, has a column.
Oh,
a
man.
monthly column in there.
I love it when they send this so early to me
before
the month starts.
So then you can be prepared.
Read all the other articles
before you do your dailies. Yes.
So I do that, and then I've done this one longer than anything. You can see it's kind of tattered and torn. It has my last name on it from when I took classes. It's got earmarks and highlights, and
that's good.
This thing called You by Dr. Ernest Holmes. So he's essentially, the sort of the creator of the Centers for Spiritual Living, Science of Mind, not the same thing as Scientology. But he has a quote in here that I found a long time ago. Now, I like to think in analogies and metaphors.
Yes.
And so when I think about all of this, I'm doing all this before I turn my phone on.
Yes.
Before I turn on my laptop, before I check my messages, before I'm in contact with anyone, because the way that your brain works, it's elastic and it will take what you want it to take.
Yes.
And sometimes it'll take what you don't want it to take about the doubt, the seeds of doubt.
Right.
And so do you remember what it was like when we didn't have cell phones?
Right. You looked it up.
So I'm going to ask you guys, do you remember what you did before you had cell phones? You didn't wake up in the morning and reach for this vibrational thing that's setting your vibration all over you all morning.
Right.
You're doing all the things. You're waking up, even if you don't do this stuff. You're walking around, you're having your coffee, you're getting the energy from the food, you're walking outside, you're with your kids, your dogs, your spouse, whatever. And so I think that digital detox in the morning, it can be so toxic to wake up and open Instagram and do that fear of missing out or comparing yourself to others. And so the way that I can explain that, and Dr. Ernest Holm, he already knew that a long time ago.
Long before there was Instagram.
Yeah. So in this book, This Thing Called You, on page 41, he talks about the doubt.
Mm-hmm.
He says, guard well this garden of your mind. It is God's garden of your soul.
Yeah.
It is your garden of Eden, wherein may grow your fondest desires and hopes, blossoming into fulfillment. Or, if you permit, the weeds of destruction, fear, and doubt will choke out the beauty of hope until despair alone remains. Watch carefully then this garden of your soul. Plant there only seeds of happiness, of joy, of peace, and of goodwill.
Yeah.
Boom. Wow. Off. That I circled it. It's highlighted, you know.
You do all the things.
And then he goes on, I won't go, but he says it may be necessary to cultivate your garden, to uproot the weeds and straighten out the rows, planting new seeds, new ideas, broader visions, and deeper realizations of life. And he goes on with this garden analogy.
I love that. I love a garden. That's lovely.
It's like the mustard seed story in the Bible that Jesus talked about. It's the same thing. Your brain is your garden.
Yes.
So what are you planting there every day?
What are you planting there?
This is what I'm planting there when I wake up in the morning.
And that is beautiful, because you plant, whatever you plant is what grows, right? It's as you're believing it. In the process of the believing, it is happening. So you're going to plant what you want to have happen in
the
your
mornings.
Life.
Just set your day.
Yes.
And then if there's any seeds of doubt and despair, I just imagine, and I never thought of it before now, that those are falling on hard rocks.
Yeah, it's not going to propagate.
They're not. They're just dropping down underneath the rocks.
Yes. Look at you. Oh, see what you did there?
It's like, instead of, what do they say, ducks back? Or
rolling off the,
let it fall on infertile soil or rocks.
I like it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So when I think about, so that's how I start my day. And so when we talk about, fear, doubt, and worry, I think what's important to know is that I battled Lyme disease. Mm-hmm. And so we've talked about this a little bit, because when I was watching your episode from last week and you said the thing about disease, I was like, oh, be careful. Be careful with that whole, what path we go down with our mind controlling disease, because, I got bit by the tick, and it took me a whole year before I was diagnosed with Lyme disease.
I remember that you even knew what it was.
Yeah, I was misdiagnosed for a whole year. Mm-hmm. And one of the symptoms of Lyme disease is this thing called brain fog. Mm-hmm. And it really is. You're like, no matter how strong or powerful or positive I want to be, I would wake up and I just felt like dreary and droopy, and just almost felt like a really bad hangover, like all the time. I just couldn't get my brain clear and to focus.
Right.
And this is what I want to talk to you guys about. If you're dealing with a medical issue and you're having doubt about how to stay healthy, and you have a brain fog or a weight hanging over you that's heavy, you're always having to fight for yourself and advocate for yourself, especially as women in the medical industry here in the United States right now. So when I was dealing with this huge brain fog, and I had a whole year where I didn't know what was going on with me, I would wake up in the morning and have really bad joint pains. And the next morning I wake up and feel like I'm walking on glass. And so I was going to all these different medical doctors, a rheumatologist, a psychologist, all the things, all the people. And I went to this one, I remember this one defining moment. And I went to this one rheumatologist, and they had done all the blood work, and they said that I didn't have lupus, I didn't have arthritis, I didn't have all the things. So because I didn't have all the things, I must have fibromyalgia.
Oh my God.
It was a diagnosis of exclusion. We don't know what you have, so you have this. And guess what? The option is for this is you get to have a prescription. You get to take a pill. And one of the side effects of the pill is possible thoughts of suicide. So thankfully, I was there with a friend, and I was going to Centers for Spiritual Living
Mhm.
church. And one of the things that the doctor said next to me, just to this day, I hope I never see him in person. It was an older man. And he said to me, fibromyalgia is a common disease in women of your age. It's mostly in your head. It's all in your head is basically what he was telling me. That I was a negative person, he told me. He said, it's happening with women of your age and you're negative. And thankfully, my friend that was there, she got all fired up. She said, you've never met a more positive person than Kristen. She literally goes to the center, to the Positive Thought Church. And he kind of looked at her and looked at me. And I didn't take the prescription.
Mhm.
And I didn't accept his diagnosis. I knew somewhere deep down inside that wasn't it.
Right.
And I went to my chiropractor a few weeks later and was talking to her, and she just straight out said, she goes, oh, well, you have Lyme.
Mhm.
She knew it, And so that is what I want you to know sometimes about the fear and the doubt and the worry is because you can have a medical diagnosis and you can have these doubts about yourself sometimes, but other people are going to try to sow those seeds of doubt in you, especially if it's a doctor.
Right.
With
I know,
diagnosis.
And you don't.
Right. And I don't even know, but here's what I think, and I'm going to give you. And this is something different from our parents' age.
Right.
In our parents' age, it was doctors are God and they know everything and they're going to fix it all. And it's like, no, especially as women right now.
Right.
So that is like, one of the things that I think is important, to understand about yourself is
you have to advocate for yourself.
Yeah.
And so here's the thing that is really important about like this story that she told is that not only did she not take the diagnosis, and she believed in what she knew about herself, that there was, I when I hear it and someone says it, I'm going to know this is actually the right answer. Like I'm going to know the same way that your chiropractor knew she's like, oh no, it's this. And you're like, that sounds probably about right. Like that sounds probably just the way you're saying that makes me believe that you are probably right about this in a way that none of those other people. And it's like, well, it's not this. Well, it's not that. Well, and it's because they only are going from the symptoms, right?
Well, and it's that confidence thing you were talking about last week.
Right.
That
when you don't have it.
The confidence.
Yes. You have to, if you don't believe in anything else, you have to believe in yourself.
Even in the darkest depths of a disease and despair, you still have some integrity with your body. The body is an amazing machine.
And it belongs to you and no one else.
Yes. And so we're talking about a parasite and a Lyme. It's not much different than COVID.
Right.
And when the time that I got bitten by the tick, I was in a very weak state, emotionally and physically. I was allowing this thing to be a host. My body was a host for a parasite. I allowed that. I'm not saying that you can knock off COVID just by being strong, not a host, but on some level.
Yes. Vibrationally, there is something to be said for how, the reason that they're saying that people who are getting it the worst are often people who have all kinds of other weaknesses. So if you are vibrationally in a vulnerable place, vibrationally, you are opening yourself up for things that can take advantage of it.
Exactly. Like an abusive relationship or something that you've been, that's been gnawing at you. If you've got all this other stuff going on, your body's not as strong as you think it is to fight those things off.
Well, and, when you're younger, unless you were a child that had a lot of childhood diseases and illnesses and were ill a lot, you had this invincibility as a kid. You're like, I always call it my Pippi Longstocking. She's my favorite because it's like, I am just, you didn't have doubt, and you didn't. Children don't fear death, so that's why they launch themselves off to things.
I think they have more adrenaline than we do too.
Yeah. Well, they drive, it's like, and the thing is, they don't worry. Right. They don't worry. They're not worried about what's coming next. Children are extraordinarily present-minded. They're really only about now or whatever they think is going to happen in the future. They're never like worried about what happened. happened before.
Right.
They'll be like, oh yeah, that totally did happen.
Yeah.
Right. And that's the end of that. They're
Right.
not in.
Yeah.
They're not, and they're not tortured.
Right.
It's funny. That torture and all of that stuff comes later, which is clearly things that you get from somewhere.
Yeah.
You pick it up from others in ways that, and people think they're doing you a favor, right? By putting fear in you. So because they want you, they're worried for your well-being. They want you to be
it's a mothering thing.
Yeah. So it's not like they're trying to like jack you up in some way. At the same time,
right,
what happens and what you do with it then becomes this, how do you find the strength to be yourself? How do you find the willingness? And I know that my parents telling me that I could do and be and have whatever I wanted in my life and be believing that did so much for my future that it continues to surprise me, where I'm like, yeah, I kind of did just do that thing. And people were like, you just say a thing and then you go do that thing. And I'm like, well, I don't understand. Isn't that the point? Like, isn't the point to have a thing, say the thing, and then figure out how to do the thing? Like, you don't just sit around waiting for it to happen.
Yeah. I think I like what you're saying. You're just shortening that time that most people in the middle are spending worrying.
Right.
And like, what's the point of having an idea if you want to go do something, if you're just going to sit around and worry about it?
Right.
It's like a cookie crusher is what I call it. Like the minute you have the idea, you're like, oh, well, that's not going to work. And then, well, wait a minute. Then why did you have the idea?
Right. Why did the idea come? Why does this exist in consciousness if it's not supposed to happen?
Right. Or if you're not supposed to work through it in some way or hand it off to someone else, if it's not yours. So,
right. But you have it. It is supposed to happen, even if it's not yours.
Right.
You have the idea and you're like, oh, I know exactly.
Who can I pass this on to?
Who needs to take this and run with it? Yeah.
So also when I think about worry, when I have worried the most, I know this sounds funny, but I'm not a doctor, but it's just been my journey with Lyme, you know, and vitamins and nutrition and stuff. If I'm not feeding my body with good foods, and if I don't get enough vitamin B or D in my multis, I notice myself worrying more.
Really?
It's almost a chemical reaction for me. I can notice it immediately. I'd be like, wait a minute. This is not me. Right. I don't normally worry like this. Oh, I forgot to do my vitamin D this morning. So I do think some of it is chemical. And there's a lot of science now that your gut is so much connected to your brain.
Yes.
And I do notice that when I worry and sometimes I'm fearful or just on that razor's edge of just despair.
Yes.
It's because I didn't eat enough that day, or I ate crap food.
Right.
Or I forgot to take my vitamins.
Right.
So I know that that's a funny thing to say, but it's just totally 100%, what I do. And
this totally makes sense.
And it's because I'm in touch with all of this now.
Well, and you have to be, because it's your body. So if the more connected to this that houses the we that we are, right? This is our house. So you got to figure out what's going on.
Right.
It's just like when the smoke alarm battery needs to be changed, right? But you're in a house, right? So it means you have like 8 or some stupid number like that, and you're like going around trying to figure out where that sound is to fix it, right? But it's because you're aware of it, right? And you're not at home, you don't even know that the thing is going off. So you're just completely disconnected from it. It's the same thing. If you're not paying attention to what's going on in your body, it will feel like a mystery when something happens. You're like, I don't understand. Why am I so this? Why is this happening? It's like, well, dude, you ate this. You haven't slept well. You blah, blah, blah. You drunk so much this week. You did, and how much water have you actually? You have just been treating your body in ways that you have to take care of it, because who else is going to? Who else is going to take care of your body other than you? It's your body. Everybody else is take care of their body. So if we're creating the life that we want, we have to also create the health that we want. We have to create it. And if our body is saying something's wrong, we need to listen to it as opposed to ignore it. You know, when you have that headache and you just don't want to pay attention to it, so you just don't. But then you squint all day and you're kind of short with people,
right?
And things are irritating you a lot more,
Yeah.
and it's because you don't even want to admit that you have the headache.
Well, you're not fully present, and that's where the meditation comes in.
Right.
Morning, afternoon check-in, and
Yes.
evening. If you're doing your meditation and you have certain ways of figuring out what is mine, you know, what is my feelings? What do I need to work through? What's my real fear, doubt, worry around this situation? Am I
Right.
about to have a breakdown so I can have a breakthrough?
Right.
Or did I just forget to eat lunch today?
Yeah, I love it.
Or
Right.
I went and got a Slurpee
Right.
and put some vodka in it.
Right. So some chemicals, a little dye,
You know,
number,
so
whatever.
When you're in the meditation,
Yes.
you're saying
Well,
which of this is
what's going on?
the body,
Yes.
and which of this is the mind,
Right.
or my heart.
Well, you need to check. It's like a check-in, right? You know,
Yeah.
you have to do that check-in and stop whatever's going on externally. That's why you either unfocus your eyes or close your eyes and go really in and disconnect to connect.
Yeah.
Right. And it's like, dude, when's the last time we had some water? You know,
Right.
like when's the last time? You know,
a fresh vegetable.
Yeah, right. Yeah,
food.
exactly. A thing.
Uh,
And you go, oh, this is true. And and part of what happens is your body does take care of you. It does the thing. It limps along. It gives you time to rectify a situation, because sometimes you're not close to where you can get a fresh vegetable, or
Right.
and it goes, okay. And that's why you can eat a hot dog. Okay, it's the only thing I can think of that's like got to be like the worst.
They have kosher hot dogs.
Well, I love when I used to eat meat.
Yeah.
That's pretty much what I ate was kosher
Yeah.
hot dogs.
Like a greasy hamburger.
Right. Well, it's just like the only thing I can think of that has all of the chemicals and all of the things and nitrates and things that can just like go to your body.
Bacon.
And your body goes,
yeah,
all right, I'm gonna let you have this.
Yeah.
Right.
Right.
But it lets you have it this time, but you can't keep doing it to yourself, because eventually it's like, look, dude, like, come on.
Yeah.
I need nourishment. Your spirit is the same way. You cannot. Well, you can do anything you want. If you want a life of illimitability, I love to say that word. If you want that life where everything is available to you and you open your arms wide and receive, enjoy, which means you are in a completely vulnerable position, because the way to really receive joy is to throw your head back and truly receive it, right? So if you are willing to do that, this is literally the opposite of fear, doubt, and worry. Like this is the opposite. This is exactly what the opposite of fear, doubt, and because fear, doubt, and worry is definitely much more like this.
Yeah. It's funny when you say all of that. One of the things that I've heard recently that I think is an important message to spread is sometimes being happy and joyful and laughing in these times is frowned upon.
Right.
It's, why are you so happy? Why are you so joyful? Shouldn't you be fearful of the politics? And shouldn't you be worried about Mother Earth and climate change? And, it's like, well, yeah, but
at the same time,
we get to be joyful too. And that's okay. You don't have to shame me for being happy right now.
No.
But there's a lot of shame and fear and doubt and worry around that. And I think, I was brought up Catholic, and so when you talk about fear, doubt, worry, and I love my family, I love my mother and father, and my mother would laugh to hear me say this, but in terms of being guided by a moral compass as a child, my mother and grandmother, Italian grandmother, guided us through guilt. Guilt and fear. Was our moral compass. Don't do this because you don't want to feel bad about hurting so and so,
right,
or aren't you worried you're going to go to hell?
right,
So that
right.
was the moral compass.
Right.
And I'm going to say it worked.
Of course, it's effective. Fear and guilt are definitely effective.
They're effective to a child, but I also think when you grow up as an adult, you got to try to think of a different moral compass besides guilt and fear.
But this is exactly why people are saying
super deep.
Why are you happy? Why are you joyful? Why are
you
literally I had a mutual friend of ours actually post a Charles Bukowski quote about the smarter you are, the sadder you are, because you're like, you can't, and I was like, I ripped into that because I was like, that's just for a lot of reasons. But however, the idea is that if you are serious about life and understanding all the things that there are in life, there's no way to be able to experience joy and happiness because those are the absence of understanding the seriousness of life. And that's like not accurate. That is how I'm going to say that. That is not accurate in knowing and being aware of all the things that are in life and still being able to find joy in life is a triumphant thing and not be it's true.
The birds are chirping around us. They're flying around having a good time. The dogs are playing, the moose are playing, the deer, all the things are joyful.
Yes.
The trees are blowing, there's a hummingbird now.
Yes.
I mean, they're not flying around moping.
Right. Right. And what's funny? I always used to tell people that I like to feel good too much. So my friend used to call me the most make lemonade out of lemons person she ever knew. And I was like, that's because I like to feel good. I'm like, I'm a pleasure seeker, so I'm just going to figure out how to feel better. And the darkest times in my life were times where no matter what direction I looked and no matter what I did and no matter what practice I used, I couldn't find light. And that was, and the people who loved me the deepest and the longest were the ones who went and got me, came in there like, okay, look, because all the things aren't working. I can see you even doing all the things, and yet this is my job. My job is to come in and go, okay, look.
Yeah, you've done that for me from time to time.
And they go, okay, because you're going like, woo, and it's like, no, here's like over here, look over here. And what's best about that is when you give yourself permission to receive the help. Because you still have to be willing to accept it.
You have to give yourself permission to be happy.
Yes.
No one else can give that permission to you.
No.
And so why are we seeking that external validation?
Exactly. Right. And that is why it's very disconcerting for people when you are not bothered by rumor or innuendo or accusations that are not you, right? The way you don't get sucked into fear, doubt specifically, I think that that because that's lack of confidence, right? So the doubt is really where you get when you don't get sucked into that because that's high school, man, right? That I always think there are things that all of a sudden I'll be having an experience with adults. And I'll be like, this is some high school shit.
I just said that last week.
I'm like, oh, look, you're doing that thing and you're doing this thing and you're saying this thing. And now I'm supposed to feel this way. And yet I completely refuse to walk into this. I am not going here because this is some high school shit and I'm not taking it.
Yeah, there's a book.
Of course there is.
Called The Confidence Code. And it was written by two women. Katty Kang is one of the authors. I can't remember the other. We'll drop a link below. Written by two women. Tons of research talking about as girls from a young age, we have way lower confidence level than boys. And so they studied Olympic volleyball teams. Those examples are in there. And, it's just, just huge for girls and women.
Yes.
If you're struggling with confidence and you're a woman or a young girl, or you have women or girls at home, or in your life, then go read Confidence Code.
That's amazing. That sounds.
It's instilled in us in school.
Well, I was just going to say that.
When I was a school teacher,
yeah.
I was guilty of it.
Right.
You call on the little boy in the front of the class first,
right?
Because he shoots his hand up first. He don't know the answer,
right?
But he's confident,
right?
And the little girl way in the back, she knows the answer,
right?
But she's not sure if she knows the answer,
right?
But she's 100% correct,
right?
So she's never going to raise her hand,
right?
It starts from very young.
It's one of the reasons why I, to this day, support the whole idea of single gender education.
Oh yeah. Well, I went to all girls private.
I went to all girls private school.
Yeah.
So there's no, and I remember distinctly when the all boys school, there would be like a week where we would have the boys at the school for some reason. I'm not really sure. And they would all be there. Everything changed. Everybody got up earlier. I went to a boarding school. Everybody got up earlier, full hair and makeup. None of that ever happened when it was just girls sitting around. All of a sudden, all of these things changed, and class was different.
Right.
Girls weren't fighting to be right. They weren't fighting to prove how smart they were. They weren't doing all kinds of things changed and this is doing a disservice, honestly, to men, because women treat them as though they have these fragile egos that they then have to buoy up by making them feel like they're the smartest. It's like a whole vicious cycle.
It's a dynamic
of things. And we have to determine that we are no longer going to buy into it, right? It doesn't matter what happened or how it happened or how you got there. I mean, of course it matters. It matters to you how you got there. The point is, at some point, you then have to choose, I'm creating my life. My life is illimitable. I can do and be and have anything I want because I am one with source energy, and source energy is one with all that there is. So if I am one with all that there is, that means that I have the wisdom and the ability to be able to either do it or figure it out. What is that, Marie Forleo? Everything is figure-outable.
Everything is figure-outable. Marie Forleo.
I just love that phrase because I used to get a little weird when people would make up words. Being Gemini word person that I am, I'm like, there are plenty of actual words. Why do you need to make it up? However, figure-outable is a thing because it's more like Farfigmugen. It's a whole phrase in one word.
Right.
It's saying,
you like the multi-syllabic words.
I really
Illimitable.
do. Yes, I do like multi-syllabic words because it's the breath of everything that it's saying, right? However, I'm not going to use the word. However, the word that begins with F and ends with K that people love to drop all the time. One of my favorite scenes ever on a screen was in The Wire. And they only use that word throughout the entire scene.
Oh, wow.
And it meant 1,000 different things just by what they were looking at. They were like, on. And it was the one where it was one of the most brilliantly acted and written, for that matter, scenes I've ever seen, because it meant all the things and it was still only the one word. So I do like a word when it really means a thing, except, but I do like I do generally like actual words. However, it is about doubt, and it's about having the doubt. Doubt is one of the biggest, it just gets in you, and it prevents magic.
And I think that also it's one of the most heavily used tactics of sabotage of people who want to manipulate and control you.
Yes. And
it's easy to plant a seed of doubt into someone else's mind.
Yes. And then you have to work your way. You have to do your work. You have to do the work when you see it happening.
Yes.
And the only way you see it happening is when you were like, I was really good until like 20 minutes ago. So like, what just happened?
Being
and
self-aware.
Then you really have to. And the only way that happens is doing the thing, reading the book, getting up and doing the work, writing in your journal, seeing the things, because patterns come out. If you stay very present, right, and you're only thinking about the day that you're in,
right,
your journal is the best witness of a pattern that you can ever have ever.
It's true. But some people don't like journaling, and that's okay.
Right.
Some people like recording voice notes.
Yeah, however you journal. I always tell people, however you record what's happening for you in that moment.
I remember when I talked about the mind being very plastic.
Yes.
You know, like almost like a, you know, like the ground, like the earth, but also like a plastic. I don't know, like, you know, easily impressioned upon, like Jello.
Right.
So I'm programming myself all the time. I'm programming me. I'm not thinking about what does the newspaper say today to program me, or this social media thing to program me, because all those things, the TV shows, the movies, those are all programs that someone wrote, and they're pushing their program on you. And so if I'm combating that, or, you know, not putting a lot of stock into that, unless I'm choosing what I'm feeding my brain, right? So like, I can't watch violence on TV. I don't want to do that. So I'm choosing what I'm feeding my brain. I'm choosing this channel. I'm choosing the other positive channels, right? But I have this little top flight 50 index card flipper thing. When I get my affirmations, or I'm having something that I'm struggling with, and I find that affirmation that's positive, then I'm putting it in this little flip chart.
I love that.
Because this goes with me.
Yeah.
And so I used to do sticky notes all over my house. Yeah. On my mirror.
You stopped seeing those anyway.
And my laptop. And the problem with that is when you have people come visit.
And you're like,
they're like, what is this you're saying to yourself?
What is all of this stuff?
You know.
Well, plus it ends up kind of looking junky. It ends up, you have a nice house, right? You do all the things. I love this.
Because this is.
And it's a place to find it. See, because I will underline things that pop out at me and do all this stuff. But if you write it there, you know where to look for it.
You could put it in your car, or put it in
or give it to somebody.
Notebook. Yeah. So that's another thing that I use.
I like it.
Yeah. So programming yourself. And that is where the stones also come in.
Well,
when you did my stone prescription with the top 5 stones of 2021, we did that thing where you're programming me. So I put that program in here.
Nice.
And I put it in my phone, and I put it, you know, the audio version, and I put it in sticky notes where I know that it's private. And so just, you know, in terms of marketing, you have to hear or see something 12 times before you hear it or see it once. So your brain is here, and then the message comes once. It doesn't go through. The message goes 12 times. Does it go through? So if I'm 12 timing myself here, all the books, all the days, you know what I mean? Like I'm doing that to myself to penetrate my brain.
And as we know, I'm always saying it's all about the practice, right? The whole, you know, it's called spiritual practice because you're continually doing. It's not like I'm spiritual and that's it.
Yeah.
You know, ask anyone who is considered a spiritual expert, right? So ministers, holy people, really big, really, you know, your grandmother, whoever you think is extraordinarily me, not just me though, but you know, clearly anyone that you feel has a deep spiritual life, ask them what they do on a daily basis, and they will tell you, I read my Bible, or I read this book, or I read that book, I read these books, and I write in the thing, and I do some prayer, and they will always tell you that they do things to help remind them and connect and get back to peace, joy, harmony of self, that understanding of oneness. That stuff is where you get it. And you have to get in there and do it all the time. And you have to do it for self.
Yeah.
You have to do it. You still have to be the one to pick up the book. You still have to be the one to turn on the podcast, go to church, do the thing. It is always, all of that is always available to you. Pick up the stone. And this is the stone we're going to talk about today. And then we're going to be done. I knew this was going to take long.
And I got one more little piece of thing when you're done with that.
But
so you go ahead.
The thing is, You are always the one that has to do it. That is why you create your life, right? So tell me what that is. Tell me, because I've been wondering about this binder.
Okay, I'm going to look for the thing about doubt. So have you ever heard of the Desiderata?
No.
It's an ancient poem.
Oh, yeah.
That was found in a church, and they don't know who the author is.
Yes.
And that's part of my daily
okay.
also.
Very then.
I think the message is that this concept of fear, doubt, and worry is not a new one.
No.
Right? Like, this is older than time, right? So
as long as there have been people.
What is he? You go ahead. I'm trying to find this quote about fear.
Okay. So today's stone is moonstone. Now this is that black moonstone. Can you see? And part of the reason, of course, that I chose moonstone is because we are about to have a new moon. Today is the 7th. New moon is on the 8th, which is magnificent. The new moon is on 8/8. It is also Lionsgate. There's all kinds of stuff. If you look up what the new moon is going on is right now, there's a lot energetically going on. And I chose moonstone specifically because of what it really represents. So, it's a book. And because I'm traveling, I don't have any of my big books, so I have my pocket book of stones.
Cool.
And I wanted to read to you some of what moonstone is really about: self-discovery, insight. The element is wind, so it's no surprise that we, as the Geminis that we are, love the moonstone. It's really great. It aids women in being regular with themselves, because women are extraordinarily connected to the moon. This is what I love. It encourages forbearance, calmness, patience, and inner tranquility.
Oh.
I love the word forbearance because it is this like come to yourself-ness, where you know who you are. And so regardless of what's happening, none of that matters, because you have this knowledge within you of self in a way that, I don't want to say steals you, it more uprights you in this. And that's what forbearance looks like. And this is the stone that connects with that in a way that, and it's moonstone. So this is new moon. So this is why I use the dark moon. New moon, the dark moon, is the beginning of things. So it is about what you're setting in motion, right? For the moon cycle. So the full moon is, it's happening, charging all the things. But to have the full moon, you have to start somewhere, and you start in the new moon. You have to begin again when you are on a course, right? And so each new moon gives you the opportunity to go, okay, these are the things that I'm doing. And it is not about starting a new vision, going on a totally new path. It's about, okay, this is my next opportunity to put the energy in, going always with the direction, because each step means you have to pick up your foot, do this, step the thing again, right? And then another again. And so that's each month you're doing the thing where you're stepping forward. And each time you do that is a beginning.
Yeah.
So each step takes a beginning, and your new moon and your moonstone, the new moon is your beginning. And so this forbearance, this moonstone, this connection to that understanding of that self that you are in a way that is calming.
We need a lot of calming energy right now.
It's peaceful. It's unflappability.
Here's another one. Unflappability.
You are unflappable, even in the face of
flapping,
of things to make you flap. I don't know. So tell me, did you find it?
I did. So he taught whoever this person is, he or she,
anonymous.
And the fifth one down. Nurture strength of spirit to shield you in sudden misfortune, but do not distress yourself with dark imaginings.
Yes.
Many fears are born of fatigue and loneliness. Beyond wholesome discipline, be gentle with yourself. They knew this so many hundreds of years ago.
Okay, this was said,
This isn't new.
and yet, same. It
Yeah.
doesn't matter. It's
Yeah.
going to be the same. It's the same. We are always people having this human experience. We are these spiritual beings having human experiences, which is why we are here, to have the experience. And there are always teachers. If you look for them, there are always teachers to help you find the answers within. There is always the wisdom. This clearly is one of these teachers. So I want
Thank
you,
you.
before we go, I want people to find you and
Yep.
understand all the things that there are to learn from you. So tell them what you need to, how they need to keep connecting.
Yeah,
with
just
you.
real fast. So I'm at the Real Classroom.
Yes.
I teach women and minorities how to break through the glass ceiling to become their own real estate broker, independent broker. So if you're a real estate agent and you want to, make that leap, that's what I teach people how to do. And I also do basic, business 101 stuff, health, wealth, and financial freedom.
Right.
So the Real Classroom, I've got my YouTube, I've got realclassroom.com, and I'd love to see you there and help you. But also just drop some comments below. We've been talking a lot. We forgot to ask them questions. Like,
did you have anything that you wanted to know?
Yeah, what did we say?
What do you think? Shoot something in there. I will get the answers to you, because now we've gone over an hour, so we're going to go. However, we will get all of those links in the chat that we talked about, all the different books. Moonstone is your thing. And I want to just say thank you to you.
Well, thanks to you. I'm grateful for your time and that you all would stay here and let me be on this channel and take the time. And
well, this is always
so grateful.
Good stuff. She's coming back, right? Because there's going to be more stuff. And there's more of this. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
I love you. You, my loves, have everything you need. You are truly illimitable. And that means you can always, always, always go out and create a life that rocks. I'll see you soon.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you.